Good evening, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We made it to Tuesday. At least I got through the day. I got stuck at work today, and I thought I was like terrified that I wasn't going to get home in time to even do the show, but it all worked out. I just said, "Okay, universe, you're going to make this happen. You're going to make it happen." And we are here and we are on time. Thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. I just want to I got to go through the chat real quick and say hi to my family, my soul tribe. Hey there, Gary. Amber. Hi, Amber. Primal Cry is here. We've got Chiro Sounds. Hi, how are you, hun? Anthony, how are you up there in Ocala? Bobby, how are you doing? Let's see. Jean. Hi, Jean. I can't have a show without Gary and Jean. They have to be here. They're like my cheerleaders. They're always and Primal Cry and Darkwood, same thing. Like y'all are my little cheerleaders, and I love it. And I love you for it. Thank you so much. So tonight we have an amazing researcher that's joining us tonight. And I'm so blessed. He has a lot on his plate. He does a lot of stuff. So he's busy all the time. So I was so blessed that, he was able to be here with us tonight. So let me just pull up his bio, guys. Give me 1 second. My apologies. You know how I am technically challenged, but you guys love me anyway. So hold on, guys. My apologies. Oh my gosh. I'm having problems with my mouse tonight, guys. As if I needed anything else, right? Okay. Jerimiah Fountain is a former pro MMA fighter from the Adirondacks in upstate New York near the Canadian border. He's a cryptozoologist that specializes in Sasquatch and Dogman Research. He's a survivalist, a hunter, and fisherman who's been researching for nearly 20 years. Ever since Jeremiah was a child, he's been interested in the paranormal and cryptozoology. He had his first face-to-face encounter with the Sasquatch in the year 2000. He has had sightings and experiences with not only Sasquatch but other entities as well. Jeremiah is the founder and co-host of the podcast On the Trail, in search of living legends, with his partner Nick Valente, who is the director of the North American Dogman Project Region 3 and 5, including the Nordic Countries. Jeremiah is also the founder of the Skookum Session Bigfoot podcast, as well as Paranormal and Cryptid Crossroads Research Group. He also has a Facebook group called On the Trail Cryptid Paranormal Research. Jeremiah loves being in the woods altogether and doesn't do this for fame, and believes it's his duty as a researcher to help others get answers to their questions about these beings. So let's give Jeremiah a warm welcome. Thanks for being here, Jeremiah.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit backstage. I guess I YouTube stalked you a little bit because I was just trying to catch every single show you were on. I was like, because you have such amazing stories, and I'm really hoping tonight that we can get into some of those stories in a little bit more detail than what I've heard you tell before. That's what I'm hoping. So, in your bio, you talk about your first encounter was back in 2000, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that very first encounter, what it was like for you emotionally and what it was like for you intellectually, like kind of like, wow, like they're real kind of thing?
Yeah. Okay. So, like you said, it happened in 2000, and it was muzzleloader season. So I had gotten out of my tree stand and I was walking back to my truck. Now, we're the spot. It's family land, 250 acres of family land, and the truck I had to walk about a mile back in the woods from my truck to get to my tree stand. So I had sat there for a while and nothing was going on, but I got a very, very uneasy feeling.
Mhm.
Again, my a very eerie feeling like I wasn't supposed to be there,
Mhm.
so kind of like that. So I said, okay, I'm going to get out of here. So I got out of the tree stand and I walked down this path. And my father had about a quarter mile from my truck, he had an old skidder, an old to tow logs with, and it was one from the 50s. It hadn't been used in years. And I was getting pretty darn close to that. And I see a head peek out from behind the front of the skidder, turn its head towards me, and look directly at me with big, round, orange eyes. Orange,
Mhm.
excuse me, like an orangish amber eye. And I had never seen anything like that before. I can
And this was
identify most.
daytime? And this was
This is
daytime?
this is as it's getting dark
Okay.
because you have to be out of the woods at a certain time and with a firearm in New York State. So
Mhm.
it was dusk and it was getting darker as the minutes went by. So I said, "Oh my God, what is that?" And at this point, I turned my headlamp on. I wanted to be illuminated. So I walked up to where the skidder was, and I'm at 40 feet away from the skidder. And all of a sudden, this thing pops out from behind the skidder again. And as I think about it, it would have been this thing's left arm wrapped around the front of the skidder with its head popping out. I could see a hand. Hand was shaped differently than ours. I was even catching detail like that. The thumb was kind of turned inward, you know,
Mhm.
more
Yeah.
like more a hand more for gripping as opposed to
Yes.
grabbing, my theory. um but anyway, it peeked out again and it just sat there for a second, got behind the truck again. Now there's two logs laying horizontally towards me like this, about 15 feet away from each other. The first one was about 12 to 15 feet away from the nose of the skidder. Now, like I said, this thing disappeared behind the skidder. All
Hmm.
of a sudden, this thing leapt out, jumped out from behind the skidder. Okay. And I'm going to tell you something, the athleticism this thing had, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Nothing in my life. When it hit that first piece, that first log, it pounced off the front end of its toes. Okay. It may have crouched down a little bit, but it did not swing its arms, nothing like that. When I say it propelled itself off the front part of its feet, that's no joke. It propelled itself off the front half of its feet. It hit that second log and it did it again. Same exact motion, propelling itself off the front of its feet. And as soon as it got to that tree, it looked at me a second and went behind this tree. So here I am in shock. I don't know what I'm looking at. Okay, at
Mhm.
this time,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden the thing comes out and it starts doing that classic Sasquatch rock me
Mhm.
rock back and forth,
Yep.
just looking at me, and it was probably half 5 feet. I was on. It was a juvenile, and Jeremiah, would this thing weigh? And I would, if I had to guess, I'd say about 180 pounds, maybe 200. And people say, well, that's
Mm.
not that big. Yeah, when you take something that's 4.5, 5 feet tall, and you stack it with 200 pounds of pure rock solid muscle, that's a big boy. I
Yeah.
mean, it could have done a number to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
For
here it
sure.
is, rocking back and it's just rocking back and forth, looking at me. And I wanted to get a better. I want everyone here to know I'm no kill. I don't believe in shooting them, unless my life is in absolute danger. Now, this is before
Mhm.
I knew really much about research. Now, I know you don't point a gun at these things, like unless you're being attacked or you intend on using it, because they know what guns are, without a
Right.
doubt. Um, I pulled my muzzleloader out and I was looking through the scope to get a better look at it. Well, as soon as I pulled that muzzleloader up and got it almost to where I wanted it, I could see the thing duck like this, cover its head, and hop behind that tree, and it was gone. and the angle when it went behind the tree, the angle it took. I don't know if they plan this the way they do, but it was bizarre because it followed the diagonal line of that tree, followed it straight. I think so I wouldn't be able to see it again. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I do. I do.
They know what they're doing. They
Yes.
know way more than we. This thing already was put together. I was a pro fighter. I wrestled in college, and
Mhm.
a 5 foot, 4.5, 5 feet, 200 pounds is big. That's a big boy. He was reddish auburn color. All reddish auburn color. Didn't a lot of people describe seeing any of that, or I didn't see any mange, nor did I catch any kind of odor whatsoever.
What color was its
I was
skin?
behind the color of the skin was like a tannish, like the
Okay.
facial skin,
Yeah.
like a tannish, and the rest of it was like an auburn brown. It
Did
didn't
it
have a
seem? Did
cone
it?
head. It didn't have a round head either.
No. Could you see
It
ears?
had some. It was somewhere. Didn't see ears. No,
No.
no, no ears. But this thing
Hmm.
was put together, and the athleticism was just incredible. I've never
Yeah,
seen anything
especially
like it.
you. Yeah, and you being an athlete, you kind of know kind of what a human body can do, or the capabilities of a human body. So
Absolutely.
to see something that's surpassing everything in your mind of what a human can do, you had to have
Right.
been at some point just like you must have just kind of been like, what did I just see, right? I mean,
Well, as I'm looking at it, as it's rocking back and forth, I
mhm,
gotta say, it did to me in the shade of the light, the way the light was going down, and the way my
mhm,
headlamp was. It resembled an orangutan, kind of,
interesting.
a little bit thicker,
Mhm.
But so here I am saying to myself, does someone have a pet orangutan around here that's loose? Because
Yeah,
that at the time was the only thing I could relate it to.
right.
But then shortly after that thing took off the way it did, I realized what I had just seen, and I got in my truck and I hightailed it out of there because I
So
knew. Oh,
so
go
what
ahead.
time?
Sorry.
That's okay. What time of year was this?
This would have been late November.
Late November.
Yeah.
And then in the area that you had the sighting, was it a it was your family owned,
Yeah,
the
that's
land
correct.
your family owns. Okay. So
That's
it was
correct.
on. Okay.
Yeah.
So and that was you didn't get the sense that there were any others around. It was just
I,
that
I
that
did.
one individual.
I did get there was something else. I didn't put it together. Maybe now that I have all of the experience under my belt. I know Mama wasn't too far away, and
Yeah. I
there's
was
no
just
doubt in
going
my.
to say that because
Yeah.
you know, uh, 5 foot tall like in some of the reports we hear 10, 12 feet. I mean, we hear
Exactly.
crazy. Yeah, so this had to be a
Sure.
pretty young guy, so
Yeah.
mom
Yeah.
had to be someplace. Yeah.
He was a young guy. Mom was somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
I told a couple buddies, and they laughed at me. Thought I was crazy. Um,
I
but
think
I
we
did.
all
My
get that.
grandmother. What's that?
I said I think we all get that no matter who you
Yeah.
are.
Oh
I
yeah.
think
Oh
we get
yeah.
it. Yeah.
But my family, I have a lot of Native American blood in my family, and I talked to different family, and they said just leave it be. It happened. Just if it continues, just do your thing.
Mhm.
It's gonna do its thing. Just don't
Mhm.
ever interrupt and mess with their babies.
Yeah.
And which
Now,
seemed like
did you ever see that individual again, or do you? Was that like the for one and only time you saw that particular individual?
See, here's the thing: we don't know. There's a possibility my wife saw that same one. Back in 2016, we were building our place down on that piece of property, or building our cabin.
Mhm.
She said, "Babe, I'm gonna go for a 4-wheeler ride, pick some blueberries." And I said, "Okay." So you're talking 16 years later after that first encounter, right?
Right.
So and like I said, she has abilities, so she's into some pretty funky stuff too. So I wasn't worried about her handling herself. She knew what she was doing. So she
Mhm.
went back and she went back to the blueberry patches and came back and I'm like, "What?" She said, "I saw one." I said, "Really?" I said, "Take me to where you saw it." And she took me to the spot where she saw it. And granted, there were some impressions in the ground. Couldn't tell if they were footprints or not. But I asked her, I said, "Stacy, what color was this thing?" And she said, "Well, it was like an auburn red with tan skin, tan hands, tan face." I said, "Really?" I said, "How big do you think he was?" She's like, "Well, when he turned her, he sat there and he stared at me a second, just like he did at me. Just
Mhm.
sat there, no harm intended, looking, just staring at her." And she said he turned and he walked under this branch. Okay, so I said, "That branch right there." She said, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, good." I said, "Then what happened?" And she said he went behind a tree. This is where it gets kind of weird onto the side we were just talking about.
Mhm.
Now, she said the shoulders were probably 5.5, 6 feet wide on this thing, which is going to make sense when I tell you how tall it was. So she said it went behind this tree, and the way it was still looking at her with half a shoulder showing. The tree was only a foot wide, so wouldn't she have seen the whole shoulder, the whole set of shoulders?
Yeah.
She saw one set of shoulders. It turned around and disappeared. So that's pretty weird itself. And
Yeah.
so I took a tape measure. I had brought a tape measure back, and I stood on top of the 4-wheeler, and I said, "I want you to hold the tape on the ground. I want to see how tall this guy was." So I raised it to the top of the bottom of the branch that it went under. That
Mhm.
measured out 10'6". She said he cleared it by about 2 inches, would have put him at 10'4". That's a big one.
That's a big, big guy.
That's a big boy. So I've
Yeah.
always wondered, is that the one that I had that encounter with almost 20 years ago?
It
I
makes you
mean,
wonder.
it does. It makes you wonder.
Yeah.
I know we've got a group of 5 to 7, 5 to 8 of them down there, and we've gotten to identify most of them from their tracks. They're a pretty docile group. Um,
Mhm.
the only time I've had a problem is when I interrupted a hunt one night and they escorted me out. Um,
Peacefully, right? They just kinda were
Peacefully,
like,
yep, and
yeah.
I knew up here they didn't want me around. And they escorted me out. I do
Mhm.
have other research spots I hit though up here where I'm convinced I'm dealing with another type.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yes, where they're a little bit nasty, and you can actually cut the tension when you get out of the vehicle. You can cut the tension in the air with a knife. So
I've heard people talk about, the theories on why that would be, and maybe the leader of that clan maybe, had bad experiences with us
yes,
humans, and they breed that thought in throughout the rest
yes,
of their clan, and they're very like, we don't trust them, you need to be super careful, kind of thing. So I definitely believe that that's that
yeah, I agree with you. I think it has to do with an alpha male, like you were saying,
mhm,
and I think it
yeah,
has to do with the type of Sasquatch that you're dealing with at the time.
yeah,
I think different combinations of things fit into that.
sure.
But so yeah, he measured out at about 10'4", give or take, and it was a monster, and
That's big. That
very
is
very
so
big,
big.
very big. But
I
the
mean, And was your wife, was she nervous? Was she afraid? Was
No,
she
no,
no? She was just kind of matter of
no.
fact about it.
She said it was a calming moment.
Wow.
Calming moment where my encounters, I've been scared out of my pants.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and here she is, 5'3", 100 pounds, tougher than nails, and she wasn't afraid at all.
Yeah.
Hey,
I was to
I
say,
guess we're just built different.
yeah, I mean, when I had my first like sighting, even though I only saw him from here up,
Yeah,
we locked eyes, and it was
yeah,
like we locked eyes. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he just kind of went zoop, just like straight down and then gone. But I wasn't
interesting.
like scared. I was like I was with other people and I'm going, I just saw one right over there, and they're like, what? And I'm like, it didn't, I wasn't afraid. I had no fear. I was just, it was very kind of spiritual for me. I
Sure,
do have a photograph of 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 him, and I don't share it.
very cool.
There's only a
Good,
handful of people that I've shown the photo to.
good, good. I don't
It's
share
for
a lot of my
me.
stuff either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I felt like
exactly.
it
I
was
think it's
for
an intimate
me.
moment.
Yeah. Ex
Absolutely. I think
yeah.
nature, I talked about that with a fellow researcher of mine that I'm really close with a couple months ago. And he said, Jeremiah, I've decided that my time in the woods is going to be intimate for me. And I said, yeah,
Mhm.
it should be. It should be intimate time between you and,
Yeah.
and nature or whoever you're
Yeah.
going out with and with yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I totally agree with
Yeah.
you. See, it dropped straight into the brush.
Yeah, 'cause down here it's very thick, right? Very, very
Yes.
thick with the saw palmettos and all of these it's just thick, 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 thick. And he just went straight down like a periscope. It was kind of
I,
crazy that he
yeah.
did it. But
I've got a
and
video I can send you. I don't mind sending you. It's a 2.5 long minute video where it was in the fall, just before they were about to leave, and I was filming because I knew they were in there that night,
yeah.
and I didn't see them at the time, but I reviewed my video after,
Mhm.
and you can
Yeah.
see them all around me dropping straight into the brush, like very fast. Dish, 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 dish.
Yeah.
5, 6 of them. But I'll dig the video up and I'll send you that and tell me
Oh,
if it's
that'd be
anything
great.
similar. I'd like
Yeah,
to know if it was similar to what you saw.
yeah, yeah. And I have another a video on my channel where, because that day when I went home and I was looking at my photos, the photos I took, um I found a different being in my
Oh,
photos.
okay.
And I go through the entire thing where I show the original photo, I give the context and the series of events that happened, and I even share my metadata so that people can see my metadata. And what I caught in my photographs, it wasn't the Sasquatch I saw. What I caught looks very similar to a dogman. And then my
Okay.
daughter-in-law, she was on my right-hand side, she has a real expensive Canon, she's a photographer. And
Right.
she just started snapping photos, and so the funny thing is when I saw him go straight down, and then we heard movement to the left, so I started taking my pictures like click, 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 click this way and then back again.
Yeah.
That's when I caught this dog man looking thing.
Wow.
But the one I saw went to the right, never even heard it. And she caught him on film.
Oh,
Because
nice.
when yeah, because he was also the reason I asked about the color of the skin on
Yeah.
with your sighting was because mine was like that same hair color, but its skin was gray. It was
Grayish.
like a
Okay.
very light gray color.
Yeah. My,
And what I saw was human.
all
Very
the way,
human.
very human
Very,
looking.
very
Yeah.
human. A round head, it wasn't conical in any way.
Yeah.
And I'll send you the photo. I'll show you. I'll send
Okay.
you're
Cool.
gonna share me one of yours. I'll share one of mine.
I'm gonna send you. There's a few of them I'm gonna send you. That sounds a lot like my second encounter. Back in 2007. I headed down to do some work on my tree stand,
Hmm.
and hunting season was about to start. So it was October, around the beginning of October. So I fixed what I had to fix on the tree stand, and to get to the tree stand, you got to walk around this big natural artesian spring, which I think
Oh,
is one of the things that keeps them there is that fresh, crystal clear water all year round. Brings
yeah,
in the deer, brings them in. I
yeah.
think that's one of the things. Anyway, I heard an ungodly howl. It was between a yell and a howl. Because I
Hmm.
decided to sit for a while after I fixed my stand up, and I said, "Okay." And as I'm walking down the trail where it splits to go to the pond and the road that goes straight ahead to get back to my truck, I see a tree about 2 feet offshore that I had never seen before. And I
Hmm.
said, "That's a bit strange. What is it? Where did that tree come from?" So all of a sudden, the tree decides to turn her hips and look straight at me. And I said, "Oh God, not again, not again." It was a female. She had breasts, very very defined breasts.
Hmm.
Not like they didn't sag like Patty's did in the video, but they were somewhere. They were maybe because she hadn't bred yet, or but she was pretty big. That's the thing. The spot in the water she was standing in went up to about 6 inches below her knees. And from what I saw of her, she was about from the knees up, from that spot up, she was about 7.5 feet. So she was a big girl.
Yeah.
She was a very big girl. And the most impressive part about her was her buttocks area, her thighs and her hips and her legs, the thickness of
Hmm.
the like tree trunks. And she too had the grayish skin and looked very human to me compared to the other one. Um,
Yeah.
had a round head, and we sat there and just looked at each other. And same with her. She did not have the knots in her hair. I don't know if maybe up here they grow a winter coat, and she was shedding her summer coat. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a theory. It's
Yeah. Right.
nothing I can prove. It's just a theory. Um, but she had very like she just went to the hairdresser. She was very smooth and very. But she looked at me and she saw I had my 300 Winchester Magnum over my shoulder because I was gonna sit for a little bit and hunt.
Hmm.
And I never go in the woods without something. We have a lot of black bear, we have wolves, big cats, you name it. And that time of year, mother bears get very aggressive up here. Oh,
Hmm.
we're all over where you are too. Anyway,
Hmm.
so I had it over my shoulder, and I saw her eyes flicker towards the muzzle brake of the rifle over my shoulder. They
Uh-huh.
flickered back at me, and I knew what she was trying to tell me. She was telling me, "You gonna skin that smoke wagon and take a shot, or are you just gonna stand there?" And I was like thinking to myself, "No, ma'am," you know. And the look
Yeah.
she gave me was, "You go your way, I go my way. We have no more problems." But I guarantee you, even if I would have tried to get that off my shoulder, I would have been able to get her. She would have gotten to me first. So we went our
Yeah.
separate ways. She hopped out of the water, Marty, and she went 63 feet and 3 leaps back into the woods. And I know this because I went back with 5 buddies the next day, and you could see the indentations where she had leapt, and they were about 20, 22 feet apiece.
Wow.
21, 20, about 21 and a half, 22 feet apiece. Each leap. And she didn't even get a running start. I'm talking about just bounding.
Yeah.
Just bounding. She had a very flat nose. Her mouth was so wide. And this is an exaggeration, of course, but the only thing I could think of afterwards was a Pez dispenser. You know,
Yeah.
Remember the old Pez dispensers? How they
Yeah.
opened it up? That's all I could think of was her opening her mouth, just a head off. You know what I mean? That's how wide
Yeah.
her mouth. I mean, it wasn't. It looked like at the time, to me, in my mind, it was ear to ear, but obviously it wasn't. But
Right.
at the time, it looked a lot bigger than I'm sure it really was. But she was. I thought she was pretty. She was reminding me of a Patty, you know. But
So
she
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 was
was big,
built, she was like, you said she was like, she was thick, right? She was like
extremely,
very thick girl.
extremely thick. Buttocks area, shoulders,
Yeah.
from front to back, Marty. From front to her back, she had to have been 2.5, 3 feet thick.
Whoa. Do you
That's
think
the
there
part that
was,
impressed me.
do you think there was any possibility she could have been pregnant?
I've never ever on all these shows I've done, I have never had anyone ask me that, and I think it's a possibility. I
Yeah.
do. I think it's a possibility because I mean, she just when she saw
To
me
me,
coming with that,
it would make a little sense because like how you described her breasts and then her
yes,
being that thick and yeah, I don't know why I'm picking up on that she
no,
was
you're right. You're
pregnant. I
right.
don't.
Now that I think about it, and the instincts to want to protect your offspring,
Yes.
normally, in my experience, these cryptids they'll take a look at you and they'll go the other way. Well,
Mhm.
she just stood there and she stood her ground, even knowing I had a weapon on me. You know,
Okay.
so her
That makes a lot
instinct
of sense.
is protect my young, protect what
Right.
I have in me. But yeah, it
Interesting.
never saw her again after that. And it was
Because
incredible.
I think sightings of females are fairly rare. I
They're
don't
fairly rare.
hear,
Yeah,
yeah, I do not hear a lot of encounters where people describe females. Very rare.
very rare. Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
know,
felt
I remember hearing one encounter where they talked about it on Sasquatch Chronicles,
yeah.
where a hunter, or no, he wasn't a hunter. He was what are those? They're like they go
Trapper.
out. They're like a survey, not a surveyor. He was
Oh,
like a
oh, oh, oh.
they check for the like for animals, like
DEC, the DEC guys, Department of
yes,
Environmental Conservation. Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yes.
And he came across a female that
Okay.
was bent. She was like bent down and she was eating. And then a man, like he saw her and then she stood up and then a male like all immediately came like right next to her. And then after they left, like after they turned and walked away, he went to go check to see, look for prints to see if any evidence was there. And she'd been, menstruating. And
Oh wow.
I had never heard anything like that encounter before. And I was like, whoa, that's no wonder that male was like, back off, Jack. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
don't even.
Don't even. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never had anyone ask me that about her being pregnant, but it's yeah. Now that I think about it, that's a strong possibility
Hmm.
for sure. Definitely a strong
Interesting.
possibility.
And another thing too that kind of was leading me to think that too is a lot of times I've heard in the people who have seen females, they do kind of say that their waists do taper in,
Yes.
that they're not so stark like up and down, that they're very
Right.
much kind of tapered in and have a smaller waist than the males. So when you were describing it as like her just being this thick, 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 I'm thinking, wow,
Right.
wait,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I don't
never
know.
thought about that
Interesting.
before. No, good
Yeah.
call. Good call on that. Yeah, I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of activity down on that land, and they've grown to know us over the years.
Hmm.
My cousin, or excuse me, my wife's my nephew was up back in 2017. He saw one. He saw a black one that we're very familiar with. Um, Another one of our friends saw him when he was a juvenile, so he's been seen twice. I've got pictures of him from the cabin window from 100 yards away. I'll send you after. He's just standing there against the tree, just staring at the cabin and just letting me take pictures of him. and there's a branch that goes across his face, and the branch measures out at about 8.5 inches, and he's still got
Wow.
another 4 inches, another 3-4 inches. So he's a big boy too.
So
Yeah,
this particular group is obviously very, very comfortable with you and your
they're
family.
very comfortable.
Obviously. Yeah.
They still mess around. They mess around with us. They'll knock on the windows every now and then, leave their handprints on the windows.
Yeah.
But they don't mean nothing by it. But like I said, there's other spots we go where these
Right.
things are aggressive. We've had a lot of boulders thrown at us, logs. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
we had one sneak in between us without us even knowing one night. The track, one of my buddies,
Oh.
we were 100 yards apart, and he said, "Get over here now." So as I walked over, I had heard some squeaking before I walked over there, and I get there, and I look down, and there's a 9-inch print disappearing in the moss as we're just watching it disappear. So that little thing snuck in between us without us knowing it.
Man. And you're a woodsman. I mean, you're a
Yes.
survivalist. Like you know how that works, and yet they
Yep.
still got one over on
Still
you.
got me. Still got me. Yep.
And I was thinking too back to how you were describing, like the hands,
Yes.
that. Have you ever seen a YouTube channel called Snow White Bigfoot?
I don't think so.
Okay, write it down. I want you to go check out her channel.
Okay.
I believe she's in Ohio, and she has a clan that she habituates with them, and they come to her house. Like they come all the way up to her house.
Okay.
But the reason when I was thinking about how you were describing the hands and how they're like the ends of their fingers kind of curl a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The thumb.
The thumb, and then she has all of these
Yeah.
different photos of all of these different handprints where in every single photo you can see that detail in that feature in their
Interesting.
hands.
Interesting.
And I thought, so when you said that, I was like, oh wow, it sounds so familiar to what she's documenting there on her property. She even has one particular video where she believes, she had her car in the garage, and the garage door had been left open, and she found, it looked the way when she explains everything to you in the entire video, her conclusion, what she was coming to, was that she thinks that it was like a female that had an infant in its hand,
Okay.
and it's like on its hip,
Yeah.
and they were looking in the car, and she shows you like this part, like this, like the elbow part,
Okay.
and she and like the side of the hand, and you can see the dermal ridges, you can see the little hairs, you can
Nice.
see, it's really interesting. And so again, and it's that like the little foot kind of looked like it had like the toes were kind of curled a little bit, like it was really interesting. So when you said that, and I was like, oh, that makes me think of her channel. You should check it
Yeah.
out. She has a lot of
Yeah, I
really
will for sure.
interesting.
I,
Yeah.
I've got it written
Snow
down
White
right here.
Bigfoot.
I'm definitely
Yeah.
going to check it out. And
Yeah.
that's like the prints they'll leave, and they're the prints they leave on our windows. There's the first window pane and then the second one. Now to leave them where they are leaving them, a human being would have to be 7.5 feet tall. And in
Because the
those
reach up is another
exactly
3 feet.
exactly
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
and the fingers are long and the thumbs are all turned in.
Mhm.
And some they'll leave this. I was talking to another researcher friend of mine where they would leave a white oily residue on whatever surfing,
Mhm.
and that they do it all the time. They were
I
doing it in North Carolina on the pillars underneath the train tracks we were investigating, leaving this oily
yeah.
substance off their hands. And I'd only heard a couple other people talk about it.
And that's what she shows you
Crazy.
in that video. That's what
Okay,
that's how you see
great.
all the detail is from that oil
That's
that was left on the
that's right.
window. Yes.
That's right. That's makes sense. I'm glad I'm not
Yep.
the only one see stuff.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to get back to. You'll find this interesting. When I saw that female, I've only had one other person talk about this, and I still think about it. 13 years later, 14 years, however long ago, 2010, 7, long time ago, almost 20 years. So when she was looking at me, how do I even explain? I have trouble explaining this every time I do. She had, when sharks close their mouth around prey, that shield comes up over their eyes.
Yes.
She
Yes.
had something from the bottom that came up and flickered at me 5 or
Mhm.
6 times. It wasn't the bottom eyelid, it wasn't the top eyelid. It was something underneath the eyelids that flickered at me about 7 times.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of anything like that before?
I have, and I will tell you, he's in my chat right now, Dark Woods. I've had him on my show previously. He's somebody you might want to talk to because he has
Okay.
witnessed that same thing. And when he brought it
Really?
up on my show, I was like, wow, that would
Yeah.
explain a lot of things because for
Yes.
me, it would explain some of why people sometimes see eye shine and sometimes they don't. Why
Sometimes they.
their eyes seem to glow and then sometimes they don't. Like illuminate from
Yeah.
the inside. Because like I had a nighttime sighting and where the eyes glowed red. It was not eye shine. I know the difference. It was
Yes.
illuminated from the inside
Illuminating.
out red.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I sometimes when he brought that theory up in my show, I thought about that and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
make a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
here
And
you are, someone else you've seen it too.
seen it too. And it was the most bizarre thing, just watching them flicker back and forth. And
Yeah.
she stopped, and I couldn't believe it. After the research I had done all over since my first sighting, I just
Mhm.
had never heard of anything like that.
Yeah,
It's
like
just very
the
bizarre.
like a shark. I mean, it's like another eyelid that it's a protective thing, but they can still see or something like that. It's like
Right, exactly.
that's that's interesting that you
Exactly.
saw that.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm
Dark
glad someone
Woods,
else
I know
has
you're
heard of
smiling. I know you're smiling in the chat over there.
it. It's incredible. I mean, witnessing something like that,
Yeah,
it's incredible.
yeah.
I couldn't believe it that I was actually witnessing it.
Are there any other details that you could think of that about any of your encounters that you feel are very different than other?
Yeah, yes, I have a encounter. I've had what I call 2 encounters, my 2 face-to-face encounters, which I just mentioned,
Mhm.
and I've had 3 sightings. Okay,
Okay.
one was on this piece of property up north. We saw that when I was telling you, my wife and I saw the black one. He was just running through the woods, hopped into a swamp, and we didn't see him again. That was a quick 15-second sighting.
Mhm.
Well, we were in North Carolina, and it was a pretty active night in the swamp, and we could see. And I just want to say something. Anyone that thinks you need to shine a flashlight in their eyes to get eye shine, you're sorely mistaken. It's not the way it works. So we were seeing them. We could hear them bipedally walking through the bayou. Okay,
Mhm.
showing we could see fluorescent blue eyes, red, amber, and then all of a sudden they shut off. Well, all of a sudden I was texting somebody, and all of a sudden my stepdaughter's 19. I had her with me that night, and I had a couple of her friends with me, and they started to Jay, what is it? What is it? What is it? I said, you got to calm down. And I looked up, and I put full lights on it, and it was a big gray one, and you could tell this was a different type than what we deal with up here. Okay, a lot
Mhm.
shorter, and it didn't pay us any mind though. Didn't pay us any mind
Hmm.
whatsoever. It kept walking, turned up the hill, walked across the train tracks, and walked away. And it was gray. It was grayish in color, and he almost had like a beer belly, but you could tell it wasn't fat. It was solid rock, you know. But he was a lot shorter than what I've seen up here. What I
Mm-hmm.
take reports of up here,
Yeah.
he was a lot shorter, but a lot heftier, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit heftier. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that and my stepson and I were on the tracks one day in that same spot, and I was filming him. He's starting to learn the trade. He's 13. I don't take him out at night because it's just, in my opinion, it's too dangerous for him to be out.
Yeah. Anything can happen
Anything can
at
happen.
night.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So he was
a little
bugging
different.
me. Take me squatching, Jeremiah. Take me squatching. So I said okay. I told his mother it was okay if I take him out. Sure, take him out for a little bit. So we were walking down the train tracks, and I was filming him, and he was narrating his little YouTube video, and he dropped his phone. He raised his finger, and just as I turned around, I see this brown bipedal-looking creature hop down into the gully and take off. He saw it, but he saw the whole thing happen. He saw it run up one side of the train tracks, across, and then back down again. I just caught a tail end of it.
At the Yeah.
Yeah, saw a
And
tail end.
it's just so different, I mean, it's interesting to hear all of the different like descriptions of body types and colors,
Yeah,
and there's a kind of a working theory of some researchers that they think that the hair is clear and
I've heard
that
it.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, in our research and mine and Matt's research, we have found hair. We found hair in on one trip, and the hair was all colors. It
Okay.
had clear, it had black, it had some brown, some that were very like started at one color and then ended up another color as you go down the shaft. So that was interesting. And then one night we were in a spot where they were just I think they were like, you guys overstayed your welcome.
Exactly.
And they were just throwing some rocks at us,
Yeah.
so it was kind of like on rock number 4. And I'll send you the photo too, it's interesting. We didn't even pick it up, we just were searching on the ground where it was at. It was at nighttime, and I find the rock, and we look at it, and it has a clear hair, one clear hair, thick clear hair. So I do think here in Florida we do have that. I mean, there are no polar bears running around in Florida. We know that.
No, and I was gonna say to you, so it's translucent, like a polar bear almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think in Florida there is that aspect somehow, some way with
Yeah.
them. Um, I do not believe every Sasquatch in Florida is clear hair or white hair,
Right.
because I know what I saw, and it
Exactly.
wasn't that color. But I mean, there are people that have these theories out there, but all I can go again, we talked about it, right? We're researchers and we follow the data, right?
Follow the
We
data.
follow the data. And if
Yeah.
your data takes you in this direction, I get it. It's your
Yeah.
data.
It's your
It's
data.
it's your data. But it
Yep.
doesn't mean it's always my data or
Exactly.
Jeremiah's data or
Exactly.
somebody in the chat's data. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You gotta go where it takes you. That's for
you
sure.
do. You do. We have an amazing researcher actually in our chat tonight,
Okay.
hanging out with us.
Very cool.
Shane Carpenter from Ozark
I know
Mountain, South
Shane
Florida.
very well. He's a
Hey,
great guy.
Shane. Oh, he's amazing. I've had him on my show once before. He's actually he's friends with my son actually. So,
Yeah, he's a great
um,
guy. Shane's a great guy.
oh, I tell you, like him and Randy are like the dynamic duo, and it's like I've said it last night. I've said it many times before. Like I feel like they're the ones that are gonna really make progress. And when I say and when I say that, I don't mean just prove existence. I mean they have really started thinking long game,
Yes.
in regards to building relationships with them, you
Yes.
know? And I think that's our next step as researchers. I feel like that needs to be our next, that's what we need to work on. I
Is the
mean,
relationship. Yeah.
is that relationship between them and
Yeah.
building trust with them. And that takes time. And over time, I think we're going to get there. And I
Yeah.
think,
I think so too. I
it's
think people are
important.
too worried about right now where they're worried about what are these things? What are they? Where do they come from? Blah blah blah.
Right.
Well, let's build a relationship first, and then that will come on its
That will
own
come.
after.
Exactly.
Yep,
Exactly.
that'll
And
come
the
on its
only
own.
way you're going to build that relationship is through trust. And
Exactly.
what and let me expand on that a little more. Stop going into their living room and banging on all of their furniture.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
if
Yep.
somebody walked in my house and started just banging all over, I'd lose my mind. I'd kick them the heck out and
Yep.
you know, hit the
Yep.
road. It's just, for me, I don't think that we're being enough researchers are being respectful enough to them as a people. And I feel
Yeah.
like that seems to really be a huge hurdle, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the best way to do it, I tell people, what do I do if I want to see one? I'll say, first of all, I don't know if you really want to see one. But second of all, build a fire, sit there, and if they want, they'll come check you out. You don't need
Yep.
to, you know,
That's right. That's it. We need to work on our primal cry says we need to work on ourselves before you attempt to build a relationship with them. And that's 100%
that's
right.
100% true.
Yes. Yes. It's for me, it's always been very like, when Matt and I go out, before we even go into an area, we literally start a conversation and we literally out loud say, "Hi, I'm Marty and this is my son Matt and we're here and we mean you no harm and we're here with respect. We only want to learn about you. If you're willing to have an interaction with us, we would be open and
Yeah.
are willing to have an interaction with you."
Right.
And then we proceed,
Yeah. Yeah.
because intention's everything in my book.
Oh, I
It
think so
it
too.
really is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
they know, and
Mhm.
they're smart enough to know, they know your intentions, and they can tell if
Exactly.
you're sincere. And yeah,
Mhm.
I think they understand everything we say,
100%.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some communication with a few of them, and, I can they know what we're
Yeah,
thinking. They
absolutely.
know They know what we're thinking, and some of them are very like, I had an when Matt and I were out with Jessica in
Yeah.
in 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 the North Georgia mountains, and that night I knew that they were I knew that there were three of them. I knew where they were. I knew their locations. I knew what position they were at. And then I was try I because I always know they're there because I get this heavy, almost like something is sitting on my chest, like I
Hmm.
can't breathe. And so I always know it's them. But that night it was super, super heavy, like really. But we had never been in that area before. That was the first time. Now Jessica had been there. She has been there going to that area for 12 years. They
Right.
know her, but they didn't know Matt and I.
Right.
And the anxiety was through the roof. And so I just started kind of like, just kind of repeating over and over and over, like, we're not here to harm you. We're not here to, we're only here to learn. Da, 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 da. Finally, they started to calm down and relax. But this is like the third time it's happened to me where I know they're hearing me. I know they are, but they're just not communicating back until
Right.
I leave. when I leave the location, they're kind of like, all right, buffer's gone. We're good. Now I'll tell you what you want to know, kind of thing, right? Like,
Right.
okay, now I'm going to give you this information. And then
Right.
the information starts just flowing. And then they'll just start telling me things. So I know that I know for a fact that they hear us. I know
Yeah.
for a fact they understand us. And I
Sure.
know for a fact that they can, when they want to, communicate back with us.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can people that don't think that or not?
Yeah.
I get a lot of that. I
Well,
won't say nuts.
but again, it's the data, right?
It's
It
the
has to
data.
be me.
Yeah, it is.
It-
Yeah,
That's my data. And I know what I've felt and I know what I've heard and I know what I've experienced. So,
yeah. I know I've changed my views over the past 15 years to this side of it. Like I said, I used to be a straight grade 8 guy, but no, there's sorry, there's just way more to it.
yeah. So now, so are you like experiencing things on the property like orbs,
Oh yeah,
any UFOs, anything
every
like that?
just like my when I take a report from somebody, uh,
Mhm.
over the reports I've gathered over the years with as far as Dogman and Sasquatch, and this
Mhm.
goes for my own experiences as well. 95% of the times during, before, during, or after an encounter or action, people are reporting lights in the sky, orbs in the sky, and identified flying objects in the sky. Myself, after experiences out there, I'll see forest lights, orbs. We
Mm.
had one. My wife and I had one follow us out of the woods for an hour one night after some action. A big gold orb. She finally said, "Stop. We're going to talk to it," and she communicated with it. And every time, and then get tiny again, bigger, then tiny
Yeah.
again. And
So
that was pretty amazing. I got that on video too. I'll send you.
so she was communicating with it.
Yeah.
So did she get the feeling that this was a Sasquatch
No,
or alien or maybe an elemental?
she thought she was thinking along the lines of extraterrestrial being
Okay.
that was there at the same time as the other things, the Sasquatch we were dealing
Yeah.
with. Because there's something that all this stuff is interrelated.
Mhm.
It is. It's all interrelated. It's got to be because too many of these things, too many
Yeah.
experiences people are having, too many different experiences going on in these
Right.
same areas at one time.
Yeah.
How can they
I
not be
agree.
related? How can they
I
not be
agree.
related?
100% agree.
You know,
100%.
it's
Because, when you're thinking about it, I feel like in a way, and again, it's not that I don't like the BFRO, but
right.
we also know that the BFRO has for years been scrubbing paranormal
Yes.
portions of stories and encounters out of their reports. So I
Yes.
kind of feel like we lost a lot of time in data, right?
Yep.
Data driven theories and research because those elements were missing from
Yes.
all of those reports because that was the go-to, right? Like if you had a
Sure.
UFO encounter, you're going to contact MUFON, right? Like so
Absolutely.
BFRO was the place to go when you had an encounter and you needed to report it or you felt like you wanted to report it.
That's right. Yep.
So I feel like we lost a lot of years in data because those things weren't included in those reports.
Yeah, we did. We did. Definitely lost some
Yeah.
times and yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without
But
a
we're
doubt.
here now. Everybody's picking up on it now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I see
Yeah.
more and more people changing their views every day, which is
Yeah.
great. They just have to
Yeah.
find out on their own. Someone can't be
Exactly.
pushed. You can't push someone into believing something.
No, you can't. It's when they experience it, right? That's usually when they go
Exactly.
looking for the answers down those other roads,
That's
the
right.
other avenues.
That's
So
right.
we're coming up on an hour. Can you stay just another few minutes? Because I would like to talk. I definitely would like to talk about Dogman as well with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Cool.
Absolutely.
All right. So I know I heard you talk about that you have seen them on, I think, on a drive from maybe like your house or to a family
Yes.
member's house. You saw one like on the side of the road. Have you been able to see one to get a little more, like to get details or anything like that?
The one time I got a good look at one, and I won't say it was a real good look, was that one that crossed the road. We were on our way
Mhm.
back. We were still building. It was the summer of 2016, and we were building our cabin down in the land. And my wife was going a little fast, and I told her, I said, "Stacy, slow down a little bit." I said. Then I looked up. I said, "Whoa, you're gonna hit that guy." Then standing against a tree is this thing, an upright bipedal German Shepherd looking being with its
Wow.
arm resting against a tree, and then it rips it away, rips the arm away, and bolts across the road. And I couldn't believe what I saw. Now, here's the deal. That night, as we were staying in a camper until we got to Placeville. That night, something slammed against the side of the camper so hard that it just about knocked it over. Now,
Wow.
Stacy saw that big 10.5 foot Sasquatch 2 nights earlier than that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I've always thought to myself, was that Sasquatch trying to keep that dog man off our property? I don't know.
Could be. It could
It just,
be.
again, it's just a theory. It's just a theory,
Yeah,
but you really got to have an open mind in this field and not count anything out.
exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
I
Exactly.
know. There's a good report I got from a girl. She's a DEC officer actually up here, and her and her partner and their new adopted baby were cruising down a road near the Mohawk Reservation, which is about
Mhm.
kind of the similar situation as to my wife's and mine. This thing stepped out in the middle of the road. They slammed on the brakes. It turned towards them and sat there and stared at them for a few seconds. They could see saliva coming from its mouth, blood coming from its mouth, and they
Wow.
noticed the same. Yeah, they noticed the same thing about the legs that I did. Now you hear a lot of dogman reports of them having haunches like a dog, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
okay, what I saw and what they reported to me, this thing had legs like us and like a Sasquatch. They didn't have the backwards haunches.
Interesting.
Yes. When I told
Hmm.
Nick that, he said that same thing. He said, very interesting, And
Yeah, because you don't, I mean, most reports do talk about like that their legs are very much like a dog's leg,
that's
right?
correct. That's correct.
And wow.
It's always something, right? It's
Yeah.
always something.
And yeah, because because I'm thinking back to those photos. I'll send you those too,
Okay,
so you can see this creature that I caught,
great.
because I caught the movement in two, and I go through the metadata in the video. It's on my channel. It's called Dogman Evidence Revealed.
Right,
So anybody who wants to go check it out, it's all there. But what makes these two photos very compelling from my perspective is that you can see in my metadata that these two photos were taken in succession, that it was this photo and then the next photo that was taken is the second photo within, less than a second apart. So you see the metadata right there.
right,
And so I'm looking at you.
right,
My son was to my left, my daughter-in-law was to my right. So when we heard, because I'm looking like this, just a little off, just a little bit to my right. So I'm looking at like 1 o'clock position is where I saw the Sasquatch.
Okay.
He goes down like a periscope. We hear movement on the left, which is why we thought he went to the left. And then my daughter-in-law caught a photo of what I saw on my right. So when I find these photos, he's looking in the first photo. You see, it's like two photos, a photo with nothing, a photo with nothing. Photo number 3, he's looking at my son. Like his head's turned this direction, looking
Okay.
at my son, right? The next photo in less than a second, he's looking dead on at me.
Oh,
Full frontal, daytime photos. Can't
wow.
miss it. And it looks, you can see clearly it's a snout. It's like a long snout. You see it's gray. It's like this like black and gray, light gray kind of color. You see when he's looking straight at me, you can kind of see the ears. Like
Ears. Yeah.
it's so I don't know how that happened. It's kind of like they were not far from each other. So we have a
They were
Sasquatch, typical Sasquatch, except for the fact he was built more like a basketball player,
yeah.
kind of a
Heard
little
that.
leaner.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this thing looks, I mean, and he looks like he's kind of standing like this with his head, like, like just like I don't know. It's a little unnerving, and
Sure.
I'm very happy that I didn't see it that day because that probably would have scared me.
Sure.
I think,
Sure.
but I don't know. I don't know what it is. I want to say it's a dog man, and everyone who sees it says that's a dog man, unmistakable. I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah,
It's interesting. You need to check it out. I do
yeah.
have a pretty weird photo from, and this is gonna sound weird too, but I was same summer. Have you ever seen the Beast of Seven
The beast of what is it? The beast of what?
Beast of Seven Shoots? It looks like a baboon.
I don't know. I don't think so.
They call it like a Type 3 Sasquatch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was cruising down the trail on my four-wheeler, and there was a tree that had been broken over the trail, and I didn't think anything of it. So I went around it and got to a second one, which is about another 100 meters down the trail. And I said, okay, something's a little weird. But I went around that one. So right then, something was telling me get out and start taking pictures. So I took pictures, snap pictures of the wood line, back and forth, back and forth. And I sent them to the researcher I was working with at the time. He goes, Jeremiah, go back to your camper immediately and look at those photos. And I did. And I knew when he told me something like that, it was time to go.
Mhm.
So I went back and I started looking through the pictures, and lo and behold, through a pine tree, you can see the face of a baboon looking creature with a snout, ears, and all. And
Oh.
it
Oh.
very, very interesting. It's the pixelation isn't the greatest, but you can see it. It's there.
Wow.
It's there. Yeah.
So I'm interesting for you to see if
Yeah.
my photos look similar to what you saw.
What I saw. Yeah. Yeah. I know there's a lot of reports of these things, these Gugway Type 3 Sasquatches up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
A lot of reports.
Right.
You mentioned that term around the Native Americans. They'll walk right away. They don't want to hear anything of it. They're scared to death of them.
I mean, I think that they're super unpredictable. Now,
Yeah, I do too.
Dark Woods that I was talking to you about earlier, who has also seen that I think
Yes.
they have Sasquatch. They're in northern Wisconsin, I think it is, and
Sure.
they have dogmen that that they know they're there. They don't seem to be threatened by them. They don't seem to
Yeah.
feel afraid or fear or whatever. So, and he's also seen that eye thing on the dogman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That blows my
So,
mind.
yeah. You gotta have him on your show. He's amazing. I will.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like a good idea. I'd like to have you on at some point too, if you were up for it.
Yeah, sure. Anytime. Anytime. But yeah, it's pretty interesting how until we all start kind of coming together and sharing pieces of
Yeah,
information, that's when the magic happens. That's
yeah,
when we learn and we say, whoa, hey, hold on, there's something to that. Even if it's weird, even if it sounds crazy, even if it sounds impossible, we still need to share it.
exactly. Look at the forensics world with crime scenes detectives.
Yes.
Just because something's bizarre doesn't mean they pass it over and say, "Ah, let's not worry about that piece of evidence."
Yeah.
You know, that's the way we have to do. We have to
Yeah.
share things amongst each other. Not
Yeah.
no answers we're ever going to get.
That's right. That's right.
Never, never,
That's exactly it. That's
never.
exactly it. We're never going to get propelled forward unless we take a leap from what we used to know and dive into something new, you know?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you for being here
Thank
tonight
you
with
so
me.
much. I had an awesome time. I could have talked another 2 hours. We just
Yeah,
scratched
well,
the surface.
can I put you backstage while I say goodnight to everybody and I end the show and we'll talk for a
Ab-
little bit?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Wasn't that amazing, guys? It was such a great show. It was so much fun, to like just share information and have that back and forth going where we put our heads together and we talk about things and we really, really, really get kind of into some diving into the depths, right, guys? Well, thank you guys all for being here. I know there was a whole lot of you guys that came in like after the show, after the interview began. Please go back and watch it from the beginning. The entire thing has been amazing. Jeremiah was fantastic. He was so gracious and so open, honest with us. And I just love that. And next week, next Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, we have Shane from Ozark Mountain Sasquatch coming. So we're going to have some like one-on-one time with Shane next week. And if Randy changes his mind and wants to maybe come on the show, hopefully he will. We'll see. But thank you guys all. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. And until next time, have a great week, everybody. I love you all.